Today, of all days, we are talking about L10 meetings. So I know some of you in this room currently been experiencing their own rollout of L10 meetings. So it will be fun, of course, to hear feedback from you. But for those of you not here with us live, we'll be going through the L10 meeting as discussed in the EOS rollout. L10 stands for level 10. So we're just going to be going through a nice overview of the different parts of the meeting, why they're important, how we run them, the different sheets we use to track them, as well as we will be sharing a template, right? That's our gift.
Yes. And that's already in the members area. So that's already there for you if you haven't gotten to go see that yet. And Savannah, I don't want to steal your thunder though. So I want to make sure that we're not robbing you because I think that you are brilliant at this. I know we got on an L10 yesterday. We were rolling out L10s for Prime for PCS. And we've been doing it for the last month or so. And I just brought in the rest of the team into these L10s because we're doing this next level thing with Prime. But I got in there and Savannah was the best because she came and she goes, I love L10s. L10's the best. I wish I could just L10 my life. Like she got so excited about L10s. And I'm like, this is perfect because Savannah's sharing on L10s tomorrow. And so just so you know, Savannah, I don't want to steal your thunder. I know you get super excited about L10s, but at the same time, we've got your back and Amelia is our joy. And we realize that you're still on maternity leave and that this is just a gift, the days we have you, let alone the days you're going to present. So I feel a little bit bad, but I know you're awesome at this. So just know I can drive or you can drive, or you just let me know what you need from me.
I have the templates open and if I just keep slapping her lightly, she seems to be happy. So we'll just see if that keeps working.
How about patting? That sounds very less violent.
Yeah.
Way less violent.
I don't beat my children, I promise.
I think you reserve the slapping lightly for when they become teenagers. You know what I'm saying? And then it's just like, and then you up level it as you need to. It's like increase as needed, but
yes.
Don't turn me into child protective services. I don't beat my children, I promise. But at the same time, good correction.
Conversation that my mom's group, we all have with each other regularly is, please don't call CPS on me. This happened today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And
a quick reminder, they're called templates for a reason. Template is a starting point. I know Kimberly here rocked out her template into a Monday board. It's pretty cool. I've seen Chandler bolts Asana board for his meetings. They're not L10 meetings, but similar concept. So you can choose a project management tool. We use the Google Sheets. It's an easy starting point. Everybody can get it. You can share it with everybody. So this is our good starting point for templates.
And Kimberly's so amazing. Like she grafted some of our templates into her Monday. Like she's doing some amazing things with her L10s for Rainmaker. So yes, there's all kinds of ways to do it.
Yeah, the important part is more the structure of like the thought and the conversation that just kind of keeps the meeting organized. So that's more important than necessarily the way that you're note taking. But you do want it to be in a format that like everyone can use and fill in. And like, for example, I think we brought up last week that I L10'd my mom group because we were disorganized. And part of the problem, it's still a good format for us, but the rest of the moms in my group that are on our leadership team are not really tech savvy. And so Google Sheets is like, shoo. And so it's really hard to get full participation if the people on your team are uncomfortable with the medium that you're choosing to record everything. So that's kind of an important thing to keep in mind, is that there is a lot of tech that's really sexy, but also keep in mind like where your leadership team is at. So she's going to start.
I promise we're good. And just so you guys, I just want you and Kimberly both to know on this call in front of everybody that ever watched this for all time, you guys are bad asses. Like that you guys are able to juggle all that you do in business, all that you do in momming, all that you do in being wives and juggling your whole household, and that you still show up so powerfully. Like people like me and Taryn are just like, hats off. You guys are the true queens. So just do as much as you're able to do here. I'm ready to rock and roll behind you when you need me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So something that's really nice about the structure that we have with the templates that we gave you is that everything that you need is right here in the agenda. So if you ever forget there's going to be a lot of information. If you forget like where you're at, what the structure is, you can just keep coming back to this agenda and it'll tell you what you got to do next, how long you should be spending on it. Speaking of how long to be spending on it, a good way to plan before your L10 meeting is kind of have an idea on who you want to take the reins for each meeting. So typically there's a facilitator, there is a deliverables capturer, and then there's a timekeeper. So facilitator is usually like Aaron's role in this meeting, like the person who's guiding you through the agenda, who's taking you from page to page, and kind of engaging everybody to make sure that they're participating. The deliverables capture is who is usually filling out the agenda as you go, because everyone will have action items that they leave the meeting with. And it's kind of a lot for the facilitator to be bouncing back and forth between this page and the other pages. So it's nice to have someone to kind of be your scribe throughout the meeting to make sure that everything is captured. And then the timekeeper is just because you really want to make sure that you have enough time to dive into your issues. You have some issues, huh? But you don't know how to do this yet. For the record, I want to use L10 for family meetings later on when my kids are older. Anyway, so there's like a certain amount of time that you kind of want to max spend on each subject. So you have plenty of time to talk through your issues, and make sure that everyone is on the same page and leaves the meeting feeling good. So diving in,
you should let me present, and then you should speak to it. I'll cut out to you and you can talk to me. That way you don't feel the pressure. Is that okay?
That's great. Thank you.
Of course. Amelia's a dream. I love her. Okay.
And the time constraints there, they're pretty helpful when you have large groups. If you have small groups, I do an L10 with 3 people, we get done in 45 minutes. But when you have large groups, 6 people, that's when you start to feel like, okay, we need to move on. Come on.
Yep. And I will say this. Go ahead, Kimberly. What were you gonna say?
I was going to say, or if your group is full of a bunch of eyes and they love to talk, then you want to make sure that that was the missing link for me. I didn't have a timekeeper. And so if you have a group full of eyes, just designating somebody to be the timekeeper would be super helpful, because everyone, if they're all eyes, they love to talk and you can like really get thrown off.
Yeah, Rainmaker team uses DISC. Eyes is taken from the DISC model of personality tests. We use Colby. I would say anybody that's a high level communicator, that's a verbal communicator, for sure you want somebody to kind of help just rein it in, and obviously done with tact and like not making people feel small or embarrassed. But at the same time, time is a real big deal. So it's super important. I do think too, on Savannah's screen before I stopped having her share, I don't know if you noticed, and she had pulled up a template that we had used for Pedro's team. I don't know if you saw how small it was, but it was Pedro, Liz, Holly, Shelly. That's what Pedro started with. Pedro had 3 people in himself when Collab Team started with him. Now he's got something like 30 employees that he's got working with him, and contractors all stacked in. So I do think the cool thing about L10s is you can start them small at your leadership team level and then trickle them down. So we're going to get into some of that as we go, but I do think size of team definitely dictates how the L10 should be run. And this one might be a more like all of us share at different points in time. So Savannah, if you've got something, feel free to jump in. Taryn, you as well. I know we just started Daryl on L10s, I think yesterday or last week maybe, and we were really rolling out yesterday. Daryl, thanks for joining us. I mean, it's a bummer that you were late, and I don't mind that it's not a big deal that you're late. Like,
I was waiting for the Daryl clip.
Here we go.
I can only do that because I'm late every single time to Daryl, every time we train. I feel like this is my only opportunity to like jab back a little bit on, yeah, anyway.
No, I mean, truthfully, I was late because I was in another meeting, but I don't want to, not show up for my boy, Taryn. So
I told you the love affair is real. When people meet Taryn, like they're just like, see ya, Aaron, you were cool until he came. Anyway, so the way you kick off your meetings, and the agenda really is, I'll go through step by step on this, for the sake of just keeping it on track per the agenda, because you do want to keep it pretty tight to these timelines, because you do want to spend the majority of your time in issues. And then depending on the size of your team, your issues dissection might take a little bit more time than this. So usually we start out with the segue, which is just personal business best. Like, hey, let's just have it. I usually call it the human moment. Let's just have a conversation about how we're all doing, how we're all feeling, where we're hitting the day. Tell me something good that happened in your personal life. Tell me something good that happened in your business life. Taryn, do you want to give us an example? Because you always have such good examples of personal best, business best.
Personal best. Yeah, I just went skiing on a mountain with snow. It was pretty fun. First time skiing. And business best.
First time ever? You've never been skiing before?
Never skied.
Yes, welcome, brother.
Thank you.
Yes.
Business best, getting things ready for our treasure challenge. That was fun.
Yes, that was a big lift, and we're still in the middle of lifting. So Treasure has got a challenge coming up next week for the Collab team, and it's a big deal. So that's taking a lot of energy. So that's a great one. So essentially, we would just go around the room, quick, give us some good, and it's good news to keep us into the meeting and keep us connected as people rather than just colleagues. And then we'll move on into scorecard review. So scorecards are awesome because they give you a snapshot of all the metrics in the company that are important for you to be watching. So, the way I usually describe this to people when we first start talking is a P&L is awesome, but usually you don't get your profit and loss statement until like end of the month. And at best, even if you have a fast bookkeeper, you're not going to get it for maybe 8 to 10 to 15 days. And sometimes if you have a slow bookkeeper, maybe not even until a full month. So then you're 2 months behind real-time numbers. So I think the nice thing about a scorecard is it's a central place where you can track real-time numbers and be able to see movement week over week, so that we can come in here and watch a profitability number grow and really ask ourselves, hey, what's changing in that? Or come in here, and another one that this particular client wanted us to do was, hey, how much are we paying out? Accounts payable totals each pay period, like watching specific numbers, watching maybe product sales numbers, maybe the sales guy comes and he reports on how the weekly sales are doing, what's total in the pipeline for the end of the month. Maybe the marketing person comes in and tells us our list growth, our Facebook, our social growth, our strategy calls booked from marketing efforts. Maybe, our customer experience person comes in and tells us how we're doing on onboarding the people that we're selling. Obviously, this is an online entrepreneur. On the Prime scorecard that we brought Savannah into yesterday, I circled back around with her afterwards and I'm like, hey, how intimidating is Prime scorecard? And Savannah's like, wow, like they get so in, but it's awesome because I think that the Prime guys, even though they have a lot of metrics in their scorecard that they're watching, what you're wanting to give people is if Steve, the CEO, or Darren, the COO, or Tommy, the CSO, the Chief Sales Officer, were to go on a Bahama vacation and be laying out by the pool and open up their scorecard, that they could see in a moment exactly where the business is at, even if they don't attend the L10 meeting. That way, if they want to ask questions or they want to pipe in or they want to say things, you're asking educated questions rather than, hey, will you go pull this report for me? Hey, will you go grab that for me? Hey, how are we doing on those numbers? The scorecard is one central spot at a meeting where you're going to look at all the critical numbers for the business, and it should tell a story. And the Prime guys, as we were building their scorecard out, we really looked at it that way of, okay, the customer enters here, and then they go here, and then they go here, and then watching key metrics. So your scorecard can actually tell the story of your business journey week over week. I thought it was a brilliant way for them to think about how to do it, because it can tell a story that gives us the most pertinent numbers that you need to manage your business. Taryn, did I leave anything out? I know you're going to go pretty deep on scorecard next week, but I just wanted to see if I'd lost anything from your perspective.
Yeah, I'm going to be digging in more next week. I think one part that's always fun is once you start building data and you can go back in time. So let's say you have a conference coming up and you can be like, oh, what were our sales last year? You can have one spot you can look at, or how many calls did we have booked coming from that event last year? So you can just quickly look and see, and it can start to help you build future expectations.
That's good. And challenges too. Like if we're doing like big challenges, like I know Rainmakers does a lot with challenges. You can watch your big challenges, especially if they're annual challenges. This is like for Pedro's business, they do wisdom challenge every year in January. Well, how do we do in wisdom challenge last year? And you can, if you've got your scorecard tracking key metrics, you can really see stuff move. For Daryl, maybe it's summer programs. As he comes into summer, he can watch, hey, how do we do summer programs? And maybe there were a couple different products that were key products that Daryl sold, or like sessions or special things that he's not doing year round, but maybe he's doing them certain times of the year. He can watch the peaks and the valleys and then make educated decisions on, maybe that should be something I do more than just summertime. Maybe that's something I do a couple times a year, especially where it becomes awesome strategy. And Taryn will go into all this, and I don't want to rob his thunder next week, but building your business, right? If you know your business usually dips a certain time of the year, what are strategic ways that you can grow your business in that dip using very, very calculated metric numbers rather than just a gut checkup. I felt like that was really good because there may be some things in your business that you feel really good about, but when you actually look at the numbers, it might not be performing as well. And that's why EOS is very, very big and everything should come back to a number. So segue, then scorecard, then rock review. Now notice each of these, that should have only taken us 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15. Like you want to be moving things through. A lot of times in a scorecard, people can get stuck with questions. If it starts getting too deep in the weeds, it's better to say, hey, will you drop that in issues? And let's have a conversation around this in the issues section, because that way it keeps us from getting bogged on some of the earlier stuff that really are supposed to just be snapshots. And then the real conversation should happen here, where we're going to give you 30 minutes of conversation. So moving after that becomes rock review. I personally think rocks is one of the coolest things that EOS does. And what rocks are big initiatives that take longer than just a week or two, that are going to need some initiative, are going to need some energy put behind it throughout the month. You know what I mean? Throughout the set of months in that quarter. So you break down your rocks into quarters. The way this should start is, hey, I've got an annual plan. This is where I'm starting. This is where I want to end up. Okay, let's break those out. If you want to end up here by the end of the year, what are some quarterly goals? What are some quarterly big projects, big rocks that we can put in place to get us building up to where you want to get to by the end of the year? And then ask yourself, which is the most urgent? Which is the most seasonal? What are the things that you need to attack first? That should probably be quarter one. And then quarter one builds into quarter two a lot of times. Whatever initiatives were put into place for your rocks for quarter one should probably have a counterpart that evolves into quarter two, quarter three. And things you tie off are great because you can leave them behind you. But it also is an opportunity to say, hey, you told us this was important at the beginning of the year, that we get here by the end of the year. Was that just like good ideas? Was that just like hopeful thinking? Like, what's the path? What's the map? Rocks is an opportunity for us to say, we're setting a course. Each rock is going to build, each quarter's rocks are going to build on the next quarter's rocks, on the next quarter's rocks, to get us to the end of the year and make sure that whatever you said your goal was at the end of the year is actually going to be attainable. So the rocks, I think one of the best parts about rocks is you are going to assign them to people. Company rocks are simply rocks that are too big for just one person to carry. It's probably going to take multiple people on the team to see it through. But EOS is very, very big on one throat to choke, is how they refer to it. And that is one person that's responsible. So if a company rock is assigned to Taryn may need Savannah's help or my help or Ben's help or Jesh's help or Steven's help or all the way down the Collab team's help. But ultimately at the end of the quarter, it's Taryn's job to get that rock to complete. Your status level is on track, off track, or complete. And all the way through the quarter, you may see some variance in is it on track or is it off track. That's wholly dictated by key dates that you put on your milestone. So for each rock that's assigned, we'll ask for milestones. And that's just 3 key dates for you to be able to see this rock to completion by the end of the quarter. If you're off track on your milestones, that's when this turns to off track. The way you get back on track is by completing your milestone, and then you can move it back to on track. But the goal is for the whole rock sheet to be this dark green by the end of the quarter. We want EOS throughout the whole system is looking for 80% or above. So we want to see at least 80% of the rocks complete. And if not, then you have the question at the end of quarter one, should this roll over into quarter two? Should this become a quarter two rock, or should it evolve into something that's more doable? A lot of times what you'll see people do in rocks is bite off way more than they can chew. And it's like, now that actually was probably 4 or 5 rocks that you just rolled up into one huge boulder that's not realistic. So consider maybe breaking it up into bite-sized pieces. Taryn, do you have some thoughts or things to share on this regard, or Savannah too? Savannah, I want to make sure I'm letting you speak. Taryn, hold your horses. Savannah, do you have anything you want to say?
I was just going to say that a big mistake that I always make in rocks is just making sure that also your milestones that you set for yourself are realistic. Because that's another way that I'll get ambitious aside from having like a big rock. Like I get excited about having different parts done quickly because I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to knock it out early on in the quarter and then I don't have to worry about it. And then I'm off track like almost the whole quarter because I set all of my milestones like way too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Taryn is the king. Taryn is the king at this because I feel like he's like, Hey, whoa. And you'll always see Taryn push his first milestone back to something super realistic. Like don't get ambitious, because at the start of the quarter, you're like, I'll have mine done January 15th. And then January 15th comes and you're like, wait, what? Dang it. And now I'm already off track. Taryn will always set him back. Taryn, maybe you could share with us a little bit of your magic on deciding how to do milestones.
Well, I know that I take on too much work, so I always set them back farther. I'll always be like, no, 31st of January, that's good. I'll get a third of the way done with it. But rocks, the great thing about rocks is you can show people what you are working on. I think we mentioned this previously, but it's a good place for them to look and be like, okay, what is Taryn working on this quarter? Like, what have I assigned him? Does he have bandwidth? Is he drowning in rocks? Is he on track? Can I give him more? And then above that, you have your leaders who are in charge of those doing rocks. How well are they leading their people? Are all their people off track on their rocks? Do we need to have a discussion with the leader about their team? If everybody's off track, where is that issue? So it's, things are on track, things are good. If things are off track, you can drill down, but you have one place to look and be like, okay, we do need to drill down on this department. What's going on?
That's good. I think too, just to awareness, like sometimes people get stuck with rocks. So they're like, isn't that just part of my daily job? Like isn't that just part of my job description? Aren't I supposed to be doing these things? And I would say there's a fine balance between, no, that's just what you were hired to do, or this is a rock. I would say reserve rocks for big initiatives. I would say this is also what keeps the visionary honest. And Daryl, you're going to have to be really honest with yourself on this one as you start rolling things out with Ben and Steven, is how much is too much for one quarter? Because the company rocks is a really good designation of, hey, is this even realistic? Or like, do we have way too big of initiatives all rolled into one quarter? And does some of that stuff need to be parsed out? Like and I could be guilty of this. We're doing this treasure challenge that's rolling out next week. And I was telling Ben, hey, I'd like to do a 3-day masterclass, which is just another word for challenge. I'd like to do a 3-day masterclass for coffee experts and do it on opening up your first coffee stand, and do a free 3-day masterclass, give everybody the understanding of what it takes to start a coffee business. And then at the end of that, offer them to upsell into Coffee Experts Club, and that way they can stay attached to us after getting three full sessions, 3 hours worth of content, and maybe some VIPs. If they want to buy into VIP, but by the end of it, they've gotten so connected with us, they are going to want to be part of Experts Club. But that's another initiative. And I needed to be honest with, hey, we probably, I was thinking, well, maybe we could roll that into this, probably this month. We could probably get this month or maybe even February, but we had to have some honest conversation about, hey, like once you determine your rocks need to be your rocks for quarter one. Like if you want to roll some stuff into quarter two, that's fine. And a lot of times visionaries don't like that restriction. They're like, no, this is really important. We really need to do this. And I'd say, okay, well, if that's really important, then what should we take off of the rocks that are already there? Because I think that you can't do everything. Not everything can be important. Taryn's keynote phrase is, if everything's important,
nothing's important.
Nothing's important. Like, so you can't, like, not everything can be important. Otherwise, if everything is, it just becomes noise. So I think that keeping an accurate gauge on your initiatives is very important. Did I leave anything out, Taryn? Anything else that was missed, or Savannah?
Nope, it's good.
Yeah. I like rocks. I love rock reviews. I love seeing where rocks come from and how they evolve into completed projects. So
I'm so surprised you haven't even dropped the image yet. I'm so surprised you haven't jumped in on me.
I was gonna say, I thought you were gonna say that you love seeing how rocks form, like literally.
I mean, we probably have to show them, right? Because that's only fair. So every time I drop a rock, like a quarterly rock, and we start talking about developing out rocks, Taryn notoriously every quarter drops this image for me. Oh, look at you taking it off and being all, oh, there she is. There she is. He'll drop this in as a reminder. This is how rocks are formed. And every single time, Taryn, just take us through it so we can understand. It's good people understand this, Taryn. Will you just walk us through this image?
It's going to take a lot more time than we have. This is a whole science class.
There's a lot of science here. Is it magma? Like that's where I love to get to. Anyway, I always will delete it, and Taryn will always somehow put it back in. So that's our fun little game that we do for Quarterly Rocks and the Collab Team. All righty, let's move on and talk about the next part. Oh, I will say this. The one thing that we didn't talk about is if anything stays off track for more than a couple of weeks, it needs to be considered as, hey, do we need to move this to issues? Do we need to have more conversation about this? Because we don't want things to end the quarter with you not being complete. And maybe it's just this person needs extra help. But we need to at least have that conversation. So that's another thing to add in for rocks. Customer employee headlines, good, bad report. This is just an opportunity to realize that not everybody in the company probably deals with customer facing issues. So it's really good here to have a member of your leadership team should probably be, if not directing your customer experience department or your customer service department, at least they have a really good tap into it to show us, hey, what are some good things and some bad things that are happening on the customer side of things? And, we obviously don't want to dive deep into the weeds. Usually we'll tell people, hey, give us trends, not data points. What that usually means is, are we seeing big sweeping groups of our customers saying something similar, good or bad? We want to hear those things. Now, if it's a data point and something's broken, then by all means, I think you can bring it up here, but that probably could be rattled over to issues too. This is more like trends, good, bad report, customers and employees. An employee headline might be, hey, we just hired this person to come in and be a new EA for the CEO. Hey, we just are elevating this person's role from being a customer experience representative up to a manager of customer experience. It's just an opportunity for us to tell the entire leadership team or the entire department that we're part of good things and bad things that are happening on the customers and the employee front. Anything missed there, guys? The next one is last week's agenda. The agenda is this is the most powerful thing. This and this, which is our issues list, and we're going to talk about this next. But your issues list should rattle up to your agenda. As you work through your issues, you're going to come up with to-dos. And those to-dos, by next meeting, everybody should be able to put in here either done or not done. If it's done, you're going to get a percentage at the bottom based on it. If it's not done, it's also going to affect your percentage. You're not going to get credit and it's going to bang you down. Once again, we're shooting for 80% completion, but this is one of the best magic makers of the whole L10s in my perspective is we're going to work through our issues and those are going to become to-dos. And then people are going to be accountable to those to-dos to bring them back as done. And I was telling Daryl yesterday when we were working out the power of the agenda and to done or not done. Like I've seen some of the most powerful leaders get so super sheepish to show up at an L10 and say that their to-do was not done. Like it's an amazing, the power of the walk of shame of saying, I told this whole group, I committed to this whole group saying I would get something done and it's not done. People don't like that. They do not like showing up at L10s to say they haven't done what they were supposed to do. And it's a really good accountability tool of getting initiatives completed. Because a lot of times you show up at meetings, great things are talked about. Yeah, yes. I love that. Get off the meeting. Who is going to move that forward? Like that was great conversation, but we didn't go anywhere with it. And therefore nothing ever happens with it. So I think that the power of the to-dos to done is one of the greatest tools in L10s. But last week's agenda is us reviewing every week. Did we get done what we said we'd get done based upon our issues? Let's look at issues and then we'll come back and spend just a little more time into that. Issues is a great place for you to drop throughout the week, things that can wait until the L10 meeting. So much chatter happens because people think everything has to be in real time. It just doesn't. Bottom line is there are some things when the ship is burning, then obviously it's all hands on deck to bring the water. You know what I'm saying? But most things aren't the ship burning. It's just, I feel like there's an urgency because I just started putting attention on it. And so now I want the answer now. When really it's a really bad habit to teach your team knee jerk, like everything's knee jerk, everything, I need this right now, And sometimes the pain point of Slack or WhatsApp or texting or whatever your instant message tool is on Teams, if you're using Microsoft, I think the downside is that people can start really blowing up feeds on things that really could wait a week until the L10 meeting. And really the conversation can be so much better when you have all the brains in the room to talk about getting that to an answer, rather than if I peel off a question because I'm putting attention on it and I ask Taryn in a Slack channel, hey, how should I do this? Or, hey, can you give me this? Or, hey, I'm having this problem here. All I get is the power of Taryn. And even though Taryn is powerful, like Taryn's only one dude, right? And so it's so much better when I can pull it across 4 or 5 different great minds and say, hey, here's the issue. How should we triage this? So what happens is whoever's bringing in the issue, that's actually, say Kimberly's bringing up an issue, She's going to come in here sometime throughout the week. And it looks like these are all dropped this way. Let me fix that. So Kimberly comes in, she's able to say, hey, I either need to share info, I need info, or we need to make a decision on something. So she's going to say decision needed. This is Taryn's magic maker right here, is the time sensitivity. Hey, how urgent is this issue? Taryn knows if he ever wants to get something talked about right away, all he has to do is hit the criticality of critical. And once the time sensitivity is set to critical, that usually is what's going to get hit first. So this is the little cheat code on L10s. Just make your issues critical, and they're going to get talked about first. And then let's say here it's I know Rainmakers had an issue with breakage. You know, there was an update broke some links. And really, in all honesty, you can give it more specifics than that, probably getting people to wrap their mind around what kind of breakage you're talking about, what platforms we're dealing with. Some of those details are good in here, but really the main power of L10s is when we come to the L10, I'm going to say, hey, Kimberly, let's IDS this. As we go to issues, let's IDS this. All IDS means is identify, discuss, and solve. So Kimberly, if she's put it in here, is going to come, she's going to identify what the issue is. We're going to discuss it as a team, and then we're going to solve that. What's the solve? The solve is there's going to be a to-do that comes out of this that goes back to the agenda and is assigned to one person from the team who's going to bring us back the details as done next week. So whatever the issue is that comes out here, we're looking for a solve. And sometimes you can't solve it that week, and sometimes it needs to carry over until the next week. But that is really it should be a small percentage of the issues here. What we want to see is as many of the issues that hit this list brought to done as possible, and solved would be pushed over to the agenda, made a deliverable, so we can hold somebody accountable to it next week when we come back to discuss next week's agenda. And then the only other thing that's on this that we should probably discuss is if your list starts getting super long, you know, some teams you've got a lot of people showing up with their issues throughout the week. You may want to come in here and rate it prior to the meeting. So if there were 4 of us on this call, maybe Taryn's issues, his number ones aren't always going to be my number ones. And so sometimes it's nice to come in here and say, hey, this is Taryn's number 1, but maybe this down here is my number 1, and maybe this is Savannah's number 1, and then this will be Savannah's number 2, and this will be Taryn, and her number 3, and this will be, I'm going to totally jack the numbers right now, but whatever. But when you can start coming up with some symbiotic energy around which is the most priority, the lowest number always goes first. So Taryn's criticality rating is going to get banged down. He's not going to get the attention he thought he was going to get by gaming the system. This one's going to be addressed first. Lowest denominator is going to come first. And so that's where you would attach, if you've got a ton of issues and you're like, well, where do we need to go first? What needs the most amount of attention? It's always good for your team to come in and look at the issues list before you just jump into your L10 meeting. So you can all kind of work through, okay, no, it's good. I've wrapped my mind around the issues today. These are my priorities. So I would say using this little tricky system over here, we saw a client do that early on in EOS. It's not really true, pure EOS to do it that way. Pure EOS would say, no. You come to the meeting and you fight for your issues. You fight for the things that are most important to you. Like that's going to show us the passion behind what's most important. We just found that if the issues list gets long, sometimes it's nice to have people come in and do some voting to up level what the issues are that are most important. Taryn, Savannah, did I miss anything? And then Kimberly, I know you've been doing a bunch with L10s, and you get super nerdy in your L10s, like you get excited about some of this stuff. So we want to hear from you. Daryl, I know you've been experiencing a lot of power in your L10s, just even though they're getting kicked off. So we'll open it up here if you guys have any comments on this.
I would just add a managerial point is that a lot of time when you're rolling out EOS, it's because your team has already kind of developed some bad habits. So where Aaron was talking about the knee-jerk, being trained in the knee-jerk reactions or questions, it's a good idea to have someone on your team just kind of be watching the conversations in Slack or WhatsApp or what have you, and just gently reminding team because they, a lot of time it's a habit of, wanting an answer right away. So just being like, hey, can you go put this in issues for the week? Because ideally the person being asked will say that, but everyone has made that bad habit. So it's good to have kind of like a point person who's just kind of, hall monitoring to keep people on track and making sure that people are putting those in issues and not falling back into those old habits.
And Kimberly just said the same thing in the chat. Kimberly's super brilliant as well. Like that is a real deal of people just a lot of times just need like some reinforcement of, hey, do you need this answer right now? Or do you think this could wait till the L10? Like just being kind about the way you're asking. You don't have to make people feel dumb. You know what I mean? It's just like, hey, I could work on this with you, but I think it's probably going to be better discussed if we all discuss it as a team. And, John Acuff is another client that we picked up pretty recently. Who actually has been doing this really well. And usually you don't see visionary traction as fast as you see like operations-based people traction. But I've noticed John's been really good about, hey, will you add that to the L10? Hey, will you add that to the L10? Hey, will you add that? And all that means is come in here and drop it into issues. And I think it becomes an amazing collector of, especially like if you're super stressed or you're like my days, my schedule, I back to back so many different things. And a lot of times somebody will hit me with an issue and I want to be a good dude and respond back with a good answer. But the reality is now my attention's split. It's so nice to be able to say, hey, I'm so sorry, I'm neck deep right now. Is there any way you could add that to the issues list and we could talk about it at the L10? And then that person feels like at least they've been heard, their request has been tracked, and then they're probably going to get a better answer than they just asked me and I was distracted anyway, and I'm going to give them something, whatever comes quickest, because I'm trying to speak to what their pain is, but really they're going to get a better answer if we can all triage that as a team. So obviously there's different levels of time sensitivity, and urgent things need to still be, like if it's real-time stuff where you're experiencing a breakage like what Kimberly was going through, and it was like, hey, this guy, it has to be fixed, it's affecting the whole community, that probably can't wait a week for an L10. But like that particular breakage had just happened like the night before. And so the L10 was happening that next day. And it was a great place for us to say, hey, Stephen, you were the origin for a lot of these things. Where do these things live? So that then we can task that out to team and that can become team to-dos. We just need the brain power of the visionary to wrap a mind around it. So that's a good example, Savannah and Kimberly. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I got a little snippet to add to that one real quick before we go to the next thing. So like we've had good L10s and we've had bad L10s. But one of the things that just came out of a great L10 was, and this is all part of like just retraining the team. Like all we've known is slack knee jerk. Like that's it. There was no other way. And so like retraining all of us to live in L10s for anything that's not urgent has been like a process, and it takes a lot of patience and a lot of like, I love these people and I want to serve them well. That's my heart. And that's why we're pushing everything over here so that we can show up and serve them well. But it was like major breakthrough that happened Monday. We come to L10, visionary is like, this looks really overwhelming. Like there's so much to talk about. There's so many to-dos. I feel so overwhelmed. And then when we got to the end of the meeting and we did our rating, which I'm sure you guys are going to talk about next, he was like, wow, I can't believe we just got all that done in an hour. Like, I feel such a relief. And that's where it's at. Like, I was like, yes, bring it on home. But yeah, like that's the whole point. It's like, okay, where are we at? Where have we been? Where are we going? Shoot, and then everybody can go their direction. They have a clear, so like, I know this is not a pitch for L10s, but I just want to throw that out there. Like the training process is a little uncomfortable. And it can feel like it's taken a long time, but it's totally worth it. When you hit that point where you're just like, you have that, like you can see the relief on your people's faces and they're like,
yes,
oh man, I feel so much better. Like I can go into this week and do what I need to do and where I'm best. And like, I know all this other stuff is taken care of because I trust my team. It's good stuff, man.
I love it. Kimberly, well done. And you captained this L10 without me this last round. You did it all on your own. And Stephen came out on the other side excited like that. So well done to you, lady. Good job.
I think we could have gone from a 9.8 to a 10 had you been there. Just saying.
You're a sweetheart. Thanks for always being kind. Yeah, Daryl, you would agree with that? That's something you would agree. Are you giving the hallelujahs? Are you giving the hallelujahs back there? You're agreeing with that one? Yes.
I do have to say though, I think I'm in a unique position because I'm growing from, that single operator with just a couple people under him to realizing that I need more staff support, but in a different way.
Yep.
So what I've gotten out of this after week 2 is honestly, I hate to say it, but know your place. And it's my business, but Ben runs my meetings. He has control over timing, make sure that we hit everything that we're supposed to hit. But knowing your place, and when I say that, I'm talking more of I can't do everything, which you and I go rounds about.
Yeah.
And then having Ben make me lay it out, what we need to accomplish, is just really important. Because when you said that part, I'm just like, oh my God, Ben did that to me. Can we do this later? Do we have to do this now? What's the level that you would place on it and that kind of thing. And then realizing that, I do love the sheet, because when you were showing it to me and just being able to just jot down on my phone right then and right there, it does take it off your head. I'm everything in my businesses from day one, and realizing that now I can't live off of a list of things that have to be done. Some things I have to let go of because I don't have the time for it or the bandwidth to handle everything. And that's hard. Like you were talking about that, Kimberly, and who does what and who does this. I think my biggest aha moment is realizing I can't do it all, and there's people that are going to support me and get it taken care of, even though I'm not doing it.
I think the coolest thing about that is like Daryl, you and Kimberly are so differently wired. Like as far as like you're the visionary, you would sit in like the visionary seat as CEO of a business, and Kimberly's like a right-hand person, like an ops-based, like brilliant at what she does as an integrator, and the complement of the visionary and the integrator is the complement. But it's so crazy because even though you guys are wired so different, Kimberly experiences the same exact thing. And I watched it a couple L10s ago of realizing she can't do everything either. You know what I mean? So that you have like that like execution as it comes out. Like the visionary comes to the place of realizing I'm growing from solopreneur to entrepreneur, right? It's not, I can't just do everything anymore. And there are probably people that do things better than me anyway. So I'm actually going to empower them to go get stuff done by the time I come up next. And then they pass that off to an integrator, and the integrator kind of scales out to team. But Kimberly and I, at that last L10 we did, we actually started breaking out the roles that Savannah was talking about, of somebody that's actually heading up the meeting, leading the meeting, somebody that's capturing the deliverables and pushing those over onto the to-dos that come out of those meetings, or adding to issues list. And then also somebody that's keeping the time. And Kimberly did great that meeting of recognizing, hey, I can't do it all, because sometimes as an integrator, you still get caught in that same web of you want to do it all. But if you're not careful and you're leading a meeting and you're jumping back and forth like this, oh yeah, no, I heard you say that. No, yeah, that's good. And I'm trying to add it the place it needs to go. You're giving your people like visual whiplash on, they don't even know what you want them to be looking at anymore. So if Kimberly can just say, hey, Jen, will you do me a favor? Or hey, whoever it is, will you do me a favor? And we just add that to the issues list? Or hey, will you add it to do? Or hey, will you do this? And then that way she doesn't have to knee jerk and move us all over the screen and give people a whiplash on how the meeting's going. It really helps too. So having a Ben that's leading a meeting, and then as it evolves, like, and Daryl, you'll probably find this, Ben asking Stephen, hey, Stephen, will you drop that on the to-dos? Hey, Stephen, will you drop that into the issues? Just having a good, like, roles in a meeting makes it so much more efficient as well. So I think that it's a good call, Daryl. Even though it pains me to say that. It's a good call. That was a good idea. That was a good one. Awesome.
I would add my 2 cents on the issues list. Sometimes you might find yourself getting bogged down in an issue, spending too much time on an issue. You've got more issues to discuss. The clock is ticking.
Yeah.
Sometimes the solution for solving that issue is you've identified 2 people that need to schedule a meeting together outside of this meeting to solve it. And so that can end up being the to-do. Maybe you leave it on there for next week to make sure it's done. Yeah. But instead of the whole group being bogged down, you'd be like, okay, you 2 just need to schedule a meeting and solve this on your own. We've had our input. There's not much we can do here as a group. We need to move on.
That's really good, Taryn, because that is 100%, especially if the visionary is passionate about the issue, and then they spend 25 minutes pontificating on how important these points are and that the different things that are in all the intricacies. And by the end, you're like, this is not best use of team time. And so sometimes the way that I'll subtly nudge that is I'll say, hey, just to sound out, we have 11 minutes left in the meeting, because then that is like a reality check for people of, oh crap, we've got like 12 more issues. Like we're gonna have to go rapid fire in these things. And I will say one of EOS's great tools is sometimes you can kill and combine. Sometimes multiple people have put a very similar issue on the issue list, and sometimes you can kill and combine 3 issues in one. So I just think that there are like some ninja tricks that you can roll out in your issues, but it's a great point, Taryn, keeping the ball moving, because if you get lost in one issue and it takes almost the entire meeting, nobody feels good at the end of that meeting.
Mm-hmm. And some people end up feeling bored and unused.
Yeah, good. Awesome. Any other thoughts on issues before I jump over and kind of wind up and then end with some questions? So the very end of a meeting, what you'll do is you've worked through your issues. They've all now turned into to-dos assigned to somebody. Usually that's when I'll slide down here and say, to conclude the meeting, in the final 5 minutes, we're going to recap the to-do list. So I'll say, hey, here are the deliverables. If you have any questions, now is your time to ask, because I don't want to hear you come next meeting and say, I wasn't sure what you meant by that, and so I didn't get mine done. Like, no, that's not an excuse. So ask me the question now, because you're going to be held accountable for this next time we talk. So getting clarity for people, recapping your to-dos, and then reminding people of cascading messages. A lot of times not everybody was in the meeting that needed to get that information. So if you're sending a director back from CE back out to his team, hey, he might need to go back out and cascade some of that message down that was discussed at a leadership team level. So think about cascading messages. And then also confidentiality reminders. Not everything talked about at the leadership team level should be cascaded down to team. So be discretionary on how you're sharing. And then you rate the meeting, 1 to 10. You're targeting 8 to 9. I'll usually say to people that are new to L10s, I'll say, hey, 1 means it sucks. 10 means it was awesome. Give me where you feel like we should land. You're wanting to live in that 8, 9, 10 realm. Sometimes meetings do suck though, and it's okay to get suck punched, but usually you want people to give you an example. So Taryn, you want to give me an example of how you would rate a meeting?
Yeah, I'll rate this one an 8 because we spent too long on one issue and not all to-dos were done.
Yeah,
but it was a great first meeting.
Do's to done. So that's a great example of you want, if you're going to rate it anything less than a 10, give us a reason on something we can make it better. You'll see Ben is ridiculous. Sometimes Ben will be like, I'll give that a 9.25. Like whatever, the people get silly with how they do their rating systems, but I think whatever you rate us, if you're not going to give us a perfect score, tell us how we can make it better, because I think we want things to get better and better. Any questions about rating? Or that's kind of the whole L10 format. Any other questions here, or we can pop over to Slido and take questions there as well. Any thoughts on
I did have a question about rating. If you say something that I don't like necessarily, can I rate it down, or is it actually for things that like how well the meeting ran and what we covered and whatnot?
I would say you can be a punk and say, well, I didn't like the fact that you gave me a hard time about being late. That's fine. Like, rate me down. But I think that typically it's the running of the meeting. So I would say, did we start on time? Did we end on time? Did we get all of our to-dos done from last agenda? Did we get through our issues? How are we doing? Did we spend too much time on rock review? Stuff like that is the constructive criticism that we're looking for making our L10 meetings better and better, because all of us want to end an L10 meeting, like Kimberly just said, where we're like, yes, we nailed that. That's amazing. Steven's team came up with this cool new thing where Steven actually mailed out to everybody. Do you have yours around you, Kimberly? Ways to be able to rate the meeting without having to go one by one through everybody, which was, I thought, a pretty ingenious little invention. But anyway, yes, there they are. He just said,
I love that.
Steven will say, okay, hold up your number. And then that way you're not going all the way through it. Like you just know Kimberly's got a 10, Taryn's got a 9, Savannah's got a 7, Daryl's got an 8. And then you can still go through and say, how can you make it better? But it's just a fun way to see. Judges are in. What are we giving that one? And that's just a fun way to do it.
That's awesome.